very, very pleased to welcome our parents of the inaugural Shaw Parent Council members who are here today: Ritika Barmecha, Mary Kay Halston, Brian Monahan, Kristen Pohl, Everett Potter, and Gail Potter. Thank you for attending today. I also would like to acknowledge the presence of our Dean's Advisory Board member, Ann Fastigi, who is here. So thank you, Ann. So I was very impressed to hear all of these things. It seems like you are on a way to take over Boston, which is fantastic. But I want to start from the beginning. We want to get to know a little bit about you, about your background. What are the events that led you to here from your foundational years to before you became a founder, co-owner of Nightlife and Entertainment Empire, and before you were crowned as the King of the Night. So, so you grew up in the greater Boston area. So tell us about your early years. Where did you grow up and where did you go to school? What were you like as a kid?
Oh, well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me here today. It's an honor, and I'm flattered that I'm distinguished. And I did contact Scott, who is here, one of my partners at Big Night Creative and other ventures, to send me the universe of things that we have, because there is a lot, but it's overlapping, and I'll explain that later. But I grew up here in Boston, kind of lower middle class in Dorchester. Two loving parents, and I was a little crazy. I was mischievous, and I played sports and a lot of hockey and baseball, and I remembered like a very, very happy childhood of seeing my parents a lot and playing sports and enjoying life, and also being maybe a click smarter than some other people. And then we moved when I was in 7th grade to Quincy, and I grew up in Quincy, and I spent 2 years there. And then during high school, my parents shipped me back to the north end of Boston. There used to be a high school there called Christopher Columbus Catholic High School. And I went there because I needed discipline. And there were Franciscan friars there. So that's where I ended up. And that really kind of changed the trajectory of my life, because, it gave me a lot of stability that I needed. And, I played sports there, and I graduated first in my class there every semester, but I tell people that like 30% of my class went to prison or something. It's like, which is an exaggeration, but it was an inner city school that was awesome. It really shaped kind of the person I am today. And I feel like it gave me a great foundation, and not just education, but also kind of in focus.
So your parents had a business, a sports bar, Kane's Place, and you did work there, and you were telling me some stories when last time we met, how you started and what kind of jobs you did at that, and how did that. So we want to hear about that, as well as what did you think at that time your future career would look like?
Not like today. So my dad bought a bar. My mom and dad bought a bar when I was in high school, and I started cleaning there. So on weekends during high school, I used to go there and clean, which was a disaster. It was like a blue collar bar down by the shipyard. It was kind of rough and tumble. And, I used to go there and clean on weekend mornings, but I love music, which I think we're going to talk about afterwards. And he had a jukebox there, which I knew how to kind of open and break into and put whatever songs I wanted. So I would just zone out and listen to music and clean. And so they were kind of happy times. I didn't love going there early in the morning to clean, but I did it. And then I graduated from there to kind of short order cook. And I still have those skills today. I love to cook, and so that created kind of some food interest. And then when I graduated bartender, I was an epic failure. I was not a great bartender. I used to make people answer Trivial Pursuit questions to get a drink, and then my dad found about that, and I got fired from being a bartender. So I ended up when we had talked about just kind of the luck of going to the high school that I went to, because I won a National Science Foundation scholarship. I went away, and then I ran into a bunch of people there whose parents were had gone to Princeton or Harvard or whatever. And then when I came back, I told my parents, who hadn't gone to college, and no one in my family had gone to college, I was going to apply to Ivy League schools, and they were kind of shocked. And I was like, those people can go. I think I can go. And I got into a bunch of places. I ended up going to Harvard. And when I was there, I was like, I will never be in this business. I will never be in that bar business, because it's a really hard business, especially like even today when I see mom and pop operators, I have great sympathy for them, because not only is the market very hard now from getting an employment standpoint, so it's even harder than it was back then. But we just lived through a pandemic, and I'm not quite sure, when I was reflecting on it, I'm not quite sure my parents would have had the wherewithal to make it through that pandemic, and not just financially, but also just emotionally to get through it. So I graduated, and I had some lucky, I always think my life is kind of like the Truman Show. I've never seen the Truman Show, but where things just happen and they're fortunate. Not that everything is always perfect, but somehow there seems to be a lot of little miracles in my life, which are great, and interactions with people that have really supported me and helped me along. And that's the key to a lot of my success. And so I worked for this professor at Harvard. He put me in charge of this group, and they were all math and philosophy majors, but somehow I was in charge of them, and I still see them all the time. And when I graduated, I started a little computer company, and I brought all those really smart guys to work for me. And then we did that for about 2.5 years. I sold it, and I bought my first place in Hingham, Mass. My brother had found a spot in Hingham that had been there for like 40 years. And then, not knowing enough to know that I was taking a big risk, I kind of reconverted it. It had been Pages for 40 years. I reconverted it to Stars. If you know anything about Hingham, it still is kind of a very kind of conservative bedroom community for Boston. And I converted it over and painted it like mauve and blue, but it was a huge success. And I was like, wow, I'm so good at this now. But it was 24/7. I worked 24 hours a day for 2 years, and then I started looking for another place. And on the heels of that, I built a second place called Tosca. We came in second in the country in top restaurant design. In 1992, I spent almost $2 million building on a place, and no one had really spent that kind of money on a place, and it's still there. So Stars is still there. It'll be 33 years. Tosca is still there. It'll be 30 years. And then I had a great run with my two partners there. And then I became friends with Randy Greenstein. I know he's not here this morning. He's one of my great business partners and my brother. We started Big Night 2006, and with the intention to do promotions for a lot of liquor companies, beer companies all over the country. And that's how kind of we started. And I've kind of ridden on their coattails, or they've carried me and allowed me to do what I'm good at, with them doing, I feel like, the bulk of the work, Randy in particular.
So so first, I'm happy to know that you went to a crosstown rival at Harvard.
Yeah.
So did you go to study business or economics? And, what did you go to Harvard to study?
Well, I started, I thought I was going to be a doctor or something. And I started as a chemistry major, which was tough to learn, that I wasn't really that great at advanced math and organic chemistry. But I switched then. I played a little hockey there. And then I switched over to an economics major. So, which, by the way, I didn't love either. I wish I really, in retrospect, had been like an English or history major, but I was in the economic side, and the math helped me.
So clearly at Harvard, they didn't teach you in economics that restaurants are a very low margin business, and right after you graduated, you went to open up a restaurant. That's incredible.
Yeah, I was one of very few people from Harvard who have been in the hospitality business.
So you opened this restaurant, and then you're going into Big Night. So how did you make the transition from restaurants to nightclubs?
So I had opened my first restaurant. It had done great. I opened my second restaurant. It was a huge hit. In fact, I had some really great celebrity chefs in the beginning. Ken Oranger, who's a big chef here in Boston, was one of my original chefs. And it was beautiful space. As I said, we came in second in the country, top restaurant design. It's still a gorgeous restaurant. I bought this old granary and converted it into a restaurant. So kind of was beautiful, like a beautiful Tuscan building. And then I had a client who came in who bought Marina Bay in Quincy. It was the largest marina in New England, like 800 slips or something. And he bought it, and he had a space that had been an existing nightclub, and he wanted to transition into something a little bit better. And I was like, I can run that. And it was 60,000 square feet, 3,000 people. It was not I wasn't quite prepared for it, but I convinced him that I was, which sometimes I'm very good at. And so I convinced him that we could do it. And then he gave it to me, and it nearly killed me. We opened late in the summer of 1996. And I built it out, I overspent, and then we had a terrible summer, and I really was on the verge of bankruptcy again. I remember calling a lot of vendors that we owed money to and saying, listen, we got a great seasonal business here. I have two businesses at Hingham that do great. We'll pay you parts out of that. And then, when we open next summer, it'll be a huge sunny summer and we'll do great and you'll get paid back. And so, I find that if you communicate with people that they're happy to hear that, you know what I mean? And they weren't happy to hear that, but they were satisfied with that. And we got through the next year, and I ran it for 14 years. And that's how I got in the nightlife business. So that was our first one. And that's where I met my now partner, Randy Greenstein. He was a DJ. He was working at Kiss 108. He was an on-air personality for years, pretty famous in the market. And he was a great DJ. And we became friends. And then I was kind of at the end of the run with my partners. And the first company I started is called Eat Well. And I was kind of at the end of the run with that. And they didn't really want to do a lot of nightlife expansion. And so I started a new company with my older brother and with Randy called Big Night 2006. And that's how we started. And, a lot of accidental things happen along the way when you're trying to do really fun, creative things. And we ended up doing, on a bet, I did a nightclub in Boston called The Estate. I said, I can spend $250,000 and make it the best nightclub in Boston. And we were talking about nightlife over here, Joy Club, and a bunch of other places. And I knew everyone in the business, so we created this. I did a joint venture with Lions Group, and we spent $250,000, and we created The Estate, and it was a huge success. We made tons of money, and then people thought it was like there was a lot of smoke and mirrors because it was a great nightclub, but it wasn't glamorous. And then MGM Foxwoods called us up and said, hey, would you like to do the nightclub down here? I think I was telling you the story the other day. I went down, I was like, yeah, we made the sales pitch, and we were about to embark on building a nightclub in a casino, which at that time their expectations was that we were going to spend $12 million, which, by the way, we did not have in 2006. And I was like, yeah, no problem. And they never asked me to show how we were going to pay it, so I started raising money then through private equity, which has really served us well. So I had a lot of great friends, and people wanted to invest, and they knew we had a good track record, and it kind of took the bank out of the equation, which would have slowed things down a little bit. So that's how we started. And then we did Shrine, and on the heels of Shrine, I did a Scorpion Bar. Then I did High Rollers, which, if Randy were here, would laugh, because I like to say we got voted the most beautiful bowling alley in the world. I'm not quite sure that's true, but it is the most beautiful bowling alley in the world. And at that time, we were looking to win casinos as kind of created, because Steve Wynn had created Bellagio and a bunch of other places. And to me, they were the premier looking places. So we used to say, what would Mr. Wynn do? Well, we're building the bowling alley. And I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a really, really beautiful bowling alley. So we went from restaurants and nightclubs to, bowling alleys. Then we did Scorpion Bar, which now we have 3 of, which is kind of a rock and roll bar. Tequila bar, tacos, tequila, rock and roll, remixed, like dance stuff. It's really fun. And then I remember saying to Randy, man, we got to get back into Boston and do some nightlife. And so we opened Red Lantern in Boston, in the Back Bay, which was another Asian restaurant that we had. And then we were looking for a space, and we were like, oh man, we could really blow this market out of the water if we spent like $4 million on a nightclub. And we ended up spending $14 million on it. And, but it was a huge success. We made a big bet. And I think one of the hallmarks of our company is that, and of our culture is, number one, we're not in it all for the money. I mean, everyone wants to make money, right. That's kind of the end game, especially when you have investors and private equity investors. But at the end of the day, it's like, how do you feel about your space? How do you feel about your employees? How are you treating your employees? And are you changing the market? Are you changing the game? I remember when we opened the Grand, I was so proud of what we had done, because it was the first time anybody had really spent a lot of money in the nightlife business, and we did incredible revenue. It was pretty incredible. It still is incredible. And in fact, in 2018, we won top nightclub in the country, which was an incredible, given the fact we're really only 10,000 square feet there. And in fact, the after party we had at Omnia, and when I went there, I was like, there's, how did we win in 2008? But it was the culture of what we were producing, kind of in a small nightclub, right? Because it's an intimate nightclub, and we would have J. Cole and Tiesto and Steve Aoki and Drake, and man, that first couple of years we had and we still do. We had every big name come through the door, and it's all about also how you treat your talent, and how you position yourself in the nightlife business. Then we just started adding things, and then I got involved with a bunch of my partners are here, and they're all brilliant. We created other kind of businesses that were attached to their creative department. So Scott had a company that was doing a lot of our creative work, and we brought him in, and we ended up buying the company, and then doing a joint venture with Scott, and he runs all our creative stuff, and he's a force of nature. Like, who could put all this all together? Not me. And then I see Tim back here, Tim Benito, and we did an arrangement with him and a partnership with him where he was a genius when it came to getting talent. Like, how do you get talent into the Boston market? You need credibility, you need relationships, and then as you build on it, you get more and more and more. And that's how we got all the talent. Tim is here in the back, I think in the back, and so we did all that with him. So my success is really, on their shoulders. We have these ideas and so forth, and then I think the things that I was good at was I had relationships with either real estate people or a lot of like people in the market who were doing like interesting things, and then finding spaces. I'm very good at seeing a space and saying, this is what it can be, and then kind of dreaming about that space and then creating what it becomes. And I think the best one was Big Night Live, which we did. And so Big Night Live is a TV garden, and it's a 2,000 person kind of live music venue. We do a lot of DJs. We book about 70% of the shows. Live Nation is a partner there. And so we do all kinds of indie acts. And I know there's a few folks here who go to different stuff. Give me disco, thank you. And we do all kinds of things. So we do all ages show, we do 18 plus, and we do predominantly 21 plus. And we do a lot of EDM, a lot of rap, a lot of hip hop, a lot of independent stuff. And it's an incredible room. And, it was a Herculean task to get it to where it was. And again, when we opened that, I thought, wow, this was really kind of taking a new look at what live music could look like when you mix it with kind of nightlife, because it wasn't just a box. It had a lot of personality to it. So that was our newest venture, and we had opened. I talked about that. Now I keep going on and on, which I love to do. We had talked about this pre-pandemic. So we opened 3 places, 2 at Encore, which for me was a dream because I wanted to work with wind, and for me it was life changing because my whole life I looked at their hospitality side and their design side as being the best in the business. And then I had an opportunity. I don't know why they selected me or how they selected me. I got along with Mr. Wynn, came through the door with his entourage, and he liked what we were doing. He liked my story, and he was another one who kind of gave me that Truman Show chance, And I remember we used to fly to Las Vegas all the time to do the designs with him, and he was not, as everybody knows, he was not the easiest person always to work with, but he was the best. And when it came from hospitality, and I'm not excusing any of the other kind of issues that he had, I'm just saying from a hospitality standpoint, from a design standpoint, he was the best in the business. And I remember one meeting we went, and the first one was so intimidating. He used to call me the kid, and he, he was almost blind, so he would go, "Where's the kid?" So beside me, and he had this voice which I can mimic quite good. maybe I'll do it, but he would say, "Sit here," and then he would talk to me about what our intention was. And he said, I remember the first day I went there, he said, "Have you seen the design for the Encore?" Which at the time was Wynn. And I said, "Yeah, I've seen the model. Yeah, I've seen the model." And he said, "Let me walk you through it." And he kind of closed his eyes, walked me through every detail for 45 minutes, like every detail, every piece of carpet and material and this and that, and the stone and the marble and everything. And then he said, "Tell me about your place." And I was like, wow, that's I think I'm so good at this. But when you can't explain things to people with pictures, it was very difficult. And it changed kind of the way my thought process too for the whole time. I think it made me a better kind of designer and someone who can visualize places. And so by the third meeting, we were back and forth, and I kept thinking, oh, he really likes us. Like, this is great, So we're in the meeting for like an hour, and it's going great until we get to the back. He liked very bright colors. If you've ever been to his places, like even the stone is more like beautiful tans. He always dressed in like Laurel Piani, like tan outfit, and then you would see it, and you could see that reflected in his bright reds and his greens and his flowers and all these things. So we were in the back, and I was going through some stone, and he hated it because it was dark. And he started getting upset, and then he didn't like it. And I said, hey, well, with all due respect, we're trying to merge nightlife with hospitality, which she didn't love me saying. And I said, we're trying to do something that's a little darker, and at night when it converts over. And he said, what are you going to call this place? And I said, to get off the subject, and I said, what are you going to call this place? And I said, I think we're going to call it Kotori. And he said, Kotori, that's Japanese. And I said, yeah, it's Japanese. We're doing Robata, Japanese. This is Mystique, we're doing Robata, Japanese. And he started screaming at me, who told you Japanese? And I was like, I'm pretty certain that we had this conversation, but I said it much more politely. I was like, I'm pretty certain we talked about it. And he said, and there used to be 20 people around this long table, I wish that had been filmed because it was so fun. There were like 20 people around the table, except it would be Mr. Wynn, myself, and Randy who would do all the talking. No one else could say anything. And, or every once in a while they would advocate for us, but he didn't love it. And then he said, Japanese, who told you Japanese? And I said, well, I think we said, who at this table told you Japanese? And I was like, I couldn't throw anybody under the bus. And then he said, I want Empire, because we had Empire at the seaport. I want Empire, so I'm slamming his fist. And I said, okay, Mr. Wynn, no problem. I can do Empire, like so easy, even easier, no problem. And he said, Kotori, it's a good name. It's Japanese. And I said, okay. So we moved on. And then I thought, I got through that one. 5 minutes later, he started getting even more upset, and he kicked me out of the room. He stood up and he said, do you know what I call this design? He slammed his head. And he screamed out in this long, drawn up, boring. And then he did it again twice. And he was standing up, and he was very intimidated, And I was like, oh my God, this is a disaster. And he got up and he lit a cigar, and they said, you have to leave. And I was like, oh, leave. You have to leave the room. You have to go pack the things up and go. So I went outside, and I was with Randy, and I said, oh my God, I think I'm going to vomit. Randy was like, he was definitely going to vomit. So we got outside the room, and then their group came out, and his group said, you guys did amazing. And we were amazing. And they said, he kicks everyone out.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, we could have told this before. Most people will last 15 to 20 minutes. You guys lasted almost an hour and a half. I was like, it would have been nice to know. And then we went back and finished the project, and I'm getting to the end of the story. There's a lot of stories in between, but we had spent $50 million building Mystique, Mémoire, and Big Nightlife. It was the most we had spent in a short amount of period. It was an incredible amount of money. And by the way, we were so bullish about the market that we were about 100%, we were 99% private equity, right? And all of a sudden for this one, we decided that we were going to be 70% private equity, and the rest we were going to borrow. And of course, when the pandemic hit and the music stopped, literally, and you had big rents, you needed to have, it was nerve-wracking. Right. And that's how the pandemic started for us. We had been open at Big Night Live for 4 months. We had been open at Encore for 9 months, and then the music stopped, and it was frightening. And I thought, oh my God, I can't believe we've been doing this for 60 years. Now I'm going to go out of business. Like, this is a disaster. And super nervous. And then, we furloughed 1,400 people very politely. We talked to everyone, and we created all these Zooms where people would get on. We would talk to them. And then I was obviously very nervous. I mean, we had $2 million rent at the Garden. We had $1 million, two different $1 million rents at the Seaport. We had all these rents, and then I had borrowed all this money. I thought, well, this is really the end. And then what happened was a miracle in some ways. And we found out that our employees, had had immediate issues, like they had food insecurities and they had housing insecurities. And she's not here today, but we have the most amazing first person we ever hired is our VP of HR. And when we hired her, we knew that we were going to hire a lot of people and try to build a company. And so I asked her, how many people do you think are going to be will not be able to get benefits, aren't going to qualify for benefits? And she said, maybe 25. Well, we had 257 people. It was a lot. And it was really eye-opening. And the market was about the same. Everybody had about 15% of people that were not eligible for benefits. And so that changed my whole perspective on things. It was like less worried about what we were going to do as a company and more worried about how someone was going to pay their bills or take care of their kids. And then there's a bunch of guys over here that everyone over here did an amazing, like they volunteered, they worked, we started these blood drives, we provided 50,000 meals to our employees, we started delivering food, I remember one time, it's gonna make me cry, I'm not gonna cry, but it'll make me teary-eyed because we were doing all these wonderful things, I thought, and it was really a call to action, right? And it took the point I was trying to make is it took my mind off of my crisis, right? So you're working through these things. And then I would talk to the bank every day. I was on with my landlords. I was, the mayor put me on his advisory board. It was a great advisory board. I was on the governor's hospitality advisory board. And so every day I was kind of in the mix and we were talking about things and how we were going to get through it, which was therapeutic for me. And I don't know, but we were taking care of all these people on the side, and that was really the volume of our business. And then one time they said, hey, we're going to do a clothing toy pop-up at the nightclub. And I was like, oh great. And then people started donating, so we collected all this stuff, amazing, like clothes. I went through all my closets and I gave everything, and everybody participated. And I thought, oh, it would just be piles of clothes, but they had such respect for their fellow employees. It was like the most beautiful boutique. Like, send me a video of it. I literally started crying. Like, it was beautifully laid out by like kids section, by sizes, by coats and pants. And it was the most beautiful boutique, which they did a number of times. So the outreach for us was very important. I think it connected me with my employees. I told you the other day that I used to feel like, I would walk through the kitchens and I could say hi to everyone, recognize them, but I really didn't know a lot about them. And then during the pandemic, I learned a lot about them, and then we've continued that. And I feel like, that's these folks here that I keep pointing to, these mysterious folks are just like, they are the reason why we're successful. And when you combine that with a partnership group who wants to be the best and doesn't really care about what every little dollar at the end, we care about the economics, but not every dollar. I think it creates a better culture of people. And that's why we won the Boston Globe Best Place to Work. We were number one year, which was amazing. And I was so nervous. I remember the first year I wish Christine were there, because Christine said, hey, we're going to apply for the Boston Globe Best Place to Work. And I said, oh, great. What's the process? She said, well, they send all our employees a survey. I go, what are you, nuts?
Yes.
Send everybody a survey, because, sometimes people that fill out surveys are not so nice. We do see that in like Twitter and other social media things. And, when it's anonymous, who knows? And she said, no, the culture company is so good. I'm so confident. I was like, oh, why? Okay. So we did it. And I think we came in 6th or something. They do the top 20, we came in 6th. And then 3 years later, we were in number 1, and we've been kind of all over the board in the top 20. We won again this year. So they'll have the award ceremony. I don't know where we place, but it's a real testament to kind of creating a company that's, creative, that cares about their people, that we're successful. Because if you come to work for us and you're not great at being a server or a bartender or a cook, and you want to segue over to working in HR or working with Kyle up there in the creative stuff, then you can do it. So there's so many avenues, and that's a big advantage in the marketplace. So while bigger is not always better, it's better a lot, I think. And if you can give people different avenues within hospitality to do other things in hospitality and create that universe, as long as it makes sense, right? You don't want to create things that don't make any sense within the universe, but you can create things that make sense within that universe and give people a home within your as Scott likes to call it, within the big night orbit, then that's great, right? Because they're bringing other things to whether they're working in like Joe has created all these podcasts during the pandemic. We did all wonderful things during the pandemic. We created all these podcasts. We built a studio. We're building a new studio. We created a card business. Like Chris Costa is here from our card business, and he's a card savant. And I remember they called me up. They were like, "Hey, we really want to do this card thing." I was like, "Yeah." And we're going to break cards online. I didn't know what the heck they were talking about. They were going to break cards online during the pandemic. And we were worried about how we were going to pay every bill. And then they just started doing it and started making money and started buying cars. And we've created a whole business online and brick and mortar. We opened 2 stores, one at Foxwoods and one at Foxboro. We're about to do one at TD Garden, one over at the Fenway Park area. And Chris is the managing partner there. And it feeds into what we do with celebrities, right? Because when Tiesto comes in, when Aoki comes in, they're all card collectors, or when the Celtics come in or the Bruins come in or these other teams come in, they're all in that hobby world. And so they'll go online with Chris. And so it creates this connection, which is even deeper and more meaningful than we had before. And I think it's even how probably Tim with his artist stuff, because the artists come in, all of a sudden it creates a connection, which we all try to do. For me, I'm like, when I always ask people where they're from, what their hometown is, where they went to school, what's their football club, well, who do they follow? And then if you can create those connections with people, then, it creates a more meaningful relationship, or it creates a foundation to get to that. And then that's how we get these artists. Like Tim is a genius at it, but if you can give them more ammunition and more help, and people can go on and break cards and do crazy stuff with baseball cards, football cards, Pokemon, and things that I don't even understand, but it's pretty cool. I don't know where I went with all this other than I'm going to say, listen, it's a magical world, hospitality. I think I love it. You got to surround yourself with great people. You have to love what you do. I'm thinking this morning, there's not a day that I've got up and I thought, oh, I don't want to do this. I've gotten up many days where I thought, I don't want to do this today, or I don't want to do whatever I need to do today. And it's not all it's not all wine and roses. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it. There's a lot of issues. Post-pandemic has also created, for me, a world of, I don't know, like people are a little bit meaner. I feel like some people are a little bit meaner, and I hope we get out of it. And we've seen it in, whether you're in hospitality, but also like in the airlines, or in how people treat other people at a coffee shop or whatever, and I just hope that we can be kinder and gentler, kind of the way we were before. It seems like some people are still on edge as a result. And we experience that with our employees. We're frontline employees. These people never stop working, right? We closed on March 15th. And then, we opened again some of our places as soon as we could in June. And so they were frontline workers. We were doing blood drives for people because the governor and the first lady of Massachusetts wanted a place to do blood drives. So we said, let's do big night. Let's take the music hall and do that. So Mark started running blood drives there. We're now the largest in New England and for blood drives for the Red Cross. And we've done how many? 91 blood drives since the start of the pandemic. And it's all volunteer. We got a ton of people. So it's a lot of hard work. The pandemic changed things. We've got a bunch of new projects we're working on, in addition to the kind of the card stuff.
You've gone through all the questions. I've been flipping my cards, and you've been answering every one of them. So I don't know if Mara has been feeding you in your ear or not, but so let me just a couple of quick questions, because we have a couple of other things to do. So one is, I've listened to you today, I've listened to you the other day, and I've read all the stories. Your commitment to people, to human beings, and people who work in that's just incredible. And that comes up again and again in all the different things. So I guess this must be a core belief that you have, that you got to treat people nice.
Yeah, when we started Eat Well, it was like our employees are our best assets. They have to be the best, you know. And I remember I started in 80. I mean, I opened Stars in 89, and we offered health benefits to our employees, which was unheard of. Like no one was doing, you know, we just thought that was important to do. And so, you know, our benefits and the way we treat people is so important to retain people, to
Right.
keep people and then support them in, you know, emotionally or, you know, when they're in bad times. And there were so many stories, pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, during the pandemic, where my employees have gone above and beyond for for uh, for each other, which is, you know, that's it.
So Ed, one of the other things you said in our previous conversation was that when you walk into a space, you don't see the space as it is. You see the space, what the potential and what the possibilities are. With your economics background, I mean, can you just elaborate on that a little bit for everyone here?
So I always felt like I had like an artistic side, but you know, you don't know you have it until it's either revealed or you work on it. And maybe you just get better at it, you know, as you do it more. But I remember I did Stars, and then you know, I kind of painted it again blue and mauve and the kind of crazy colors. And it was a huge hit. And then I wanted to do a second spot, and I looked forever for space, and I ended up buying a building right across the way, and that was called Tosca. And but when I bought it, it was kind of a two-story space, and when you went in it was hard to see it, but for some reason my mind was reading it, and I hired Morris Nathanson, who was then like one of the top designers in the world, you know. So man, and I thought, well, this is a big reach. Morris came up and he looked at it with me, and we kind of went back and forth, and then he brought his design, and I kept looking at thinking, this doesn't look like anything like I thought it would look like, right? And it seemed all wrong to me. And I don't know where I got the strength at the time because Morris was pretty strong. And I said, Morris, I have to tell you, I think this is backwards. You know, this you know, this side, you know, that side. He was like, "What are you talking about?" I only done one restaurant, right? What are you talking about? I said, "I don't know. This doesn't feel right." And he said, "I'm going to Paris for a month, and I'll send another guy. I'll send my number two up, and you guys can go through it." He was nice about it, but he was pretty upset. He wasn't thrilled that I didn't love his out of the gate design because it was renderings and so forth. And then Peter Nemeth came up, and Peter was his number two. And Peter came up, and we started talking. He goes, "This Morris design is all wrong." And so together we designed Tosca and the way it is today. And you know, we came in second in the country. I always thought we should have won. But it's won tons of awards, not only for its food, but for design. And then Peter and I have done all the projects since then. So I've been working with him since 1993. We have a great relationship, and you know, he sees certain things, I see certain things, and he allows me to do my thing within the space. And he's a genius with colors and materials and fabrics and so forth. And he's one of the best designers in the world. So I just took a video yesterday of Mystique because it was a different meeting. I think it's the finest design restaurant I've ever seen. And you know, we did that with Mr. Wynn too. So it was really Wynn, Peter, and myself doing it. But it's a beautiful restaurant, and I think you find partners like that, creative partners, and you can hold on to them. Not every day is perfect with Peter, you know. And Joe is up here probably laughing. Joe's our VP of construction, and you know, Peter can be a handful sometimes, more for Joe than for me, but he's a genius. And if you can pair yourself up with other people who are genius, I think the lesson today, by the way, if there's any lesson over from me, is that you know, surround yourself with great people and have confidence in what you want to do. Be able to, you know, try to take a risk. You know, it's easy for people to say, "Hey, go take a risk," and then you know, people go out of business, right, and so forth. And you know, you got to have luck, and you got to be fortunate, and you got to try to control your your downside, I guess. I don't know. I just wasn't one to worry about certain things. And Randy always is on me because I'm not a worry about money. It was the one time during the pandemic when it started, which lasted for about 2 weeks until we had to take care of employees, that I was worried for the first time, where I thought, oh, it's not going to all work out. Or even if it's not going to all work out, it's not going to kill me. And but you know, Randy was like, "Are you worried about?" I remember we were doing projects, like, we don't really have the $12 million. I go, "Oh, we'll figure out the $12 million." And by the way, he did as much or more work than as me to raise the money. So So it's equal in that sense. I just don't feel the stress of that. And he always makes fun of me. Like I feel the stress more of the responsibility. So, I kind of alluded to the fact that I deal with any incidents that occur, any kind of major issues I deal with, kind of independent of Randy. And then because he's more on the operation side of day to day, and that part you need to stay as positive and focused as possible. So
So
we kind of have our little different universes that eventually overlap every week, but it doesn't cloud what he's doing with what I'm doing.
clearly, money is not something that you worry about. I got that loud and clear. I want to switch to music since it's central to most of the businesses you do. So in advance of this talk, we asked you for a list of the top 20 songs to put the soundtrack together for Ed Kane Big Night movie. Okay. So out of that list, can you pick one song, maybe the top shop, the Rolling Stones, Give Me a Shelter, and tell us about that song and why it's meaningful to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everybody has the same experience with music. You hear a song and you're transported back to a moment, a place, a person, whatever it is. I still can hear this Don Henley song when I hear it. I think of this kid that I went to college with, and we were driving down the road in Cambridge, and it happens every time, even though I haven't seen him in 40 years, but I can remember it. And I think music is transported. He doesn't know, and these guys probably don't know it, but I spent a bunch of years over and over working on this screenplay that I wrote, which is called Songs for a Funeral. It's about this guy who dies, and he has music, and these is music that's meaningful to him. So they asked me to do this list, and I was like, I hate doing these lists because I like 1,000 songs for different reasons, And so I went through this morning and kind of put this little list together of songs that I really like. I mean, Give Me Shelter for me. I grew up. So my older brother, who I don't know why he's not here today, or he better be tuned in. He was 3 years older than me, which is a lot when you're growing up. And he had a turntable, and he used to bring home records, and I used to play them when he wasn't there because he didn't want me touching his records because of course he thought I was going to ruin them. So I used to play them. So it would be Led Zeppelin or Aerosmith or Rolling Stones or Jackson Brown or Elvis Costello. They just started coming, and I would play them through and through. It's when you used to play an album all the way through, and that really for me, as a boy growing up, and then trying to find your way as a kid. We had moved to Quincy. I didn't have a lot of friends. I was telling the story earlier, which I'll tell you later, but it was just like, it was meaningful to me to listen to albums. I don't do it as much anymore, where you just sit there and you listen to music all day.
Right.
I remember when the Rolling Stones, he brought Get Your Ya-Ya's out, and it was a live version, and all these songs that were live. It was like 1972 and 1973. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. I played it 1,000 times. I played Neil Young After the Gold Rush 1,000 times, a million times maybe. And I don't know why, but it always made me feel melancholy better at the moment that I needed it. And so I think music is transporter. So this list here, I don't know, just songs that I really like for different reasons.
So we are going to see a movie at one point.
Yeah, right.
So,
but I don't know if you saw the Give Me Shelter, which I love. I've always loved it. So they did it. There was a movie that came out recently, and it's called that 20 Feet from Stardom, and it's about the backup singers during that thing, which is a really interesting story. So all these rock and rolls were trying to give their songs a little more meaning, a little more soul, and so they had these different soul singers. So Mary Clayton sings on the background of Give Me Shelter. It's a really good story, and it really shows you like a lot of the folks who should have been given a lot of credit were not given the credit in the moment, and they're finally being recognized now. But if you listen to that song, like Give Me Shelter, without her in the background, it wouldn't even be the same song. So she really carries Mick Jagger. And I have to tell a funny story. So freshman year in college, I show up at Harvard, and I'm on the door. I have no idea what's going on, right? But I built a bar in my room, in my living room, of course.
Absolutely.
And I had a toaster oven, and my dad used to send over, because he had a bar, like little burgers and cheese and rolls and stuff. So I would make all this stuff. And every night after studying, because I was a chemistry major freshman year, it was a disaster. Like at midnight, everyone would come to my room, and we would cook and we would drink, and then I would play Mick Jagger. These guys don't know, but we would play like Dead Flowers. No one knows that song, but it's a kind of like it's a country rock and roll song that they do, and I would always play Mick Jagger. Like there would be like 30 people there. I can't believe I did it at the time. But I love the Rolling Stones, and that's why I love Shelter, and I think it's they're incredible.
So you were a chemistry major, so that bar was actually different chemicals you were just playing.
Yeah,
around
yeah.
with. So I know that we have some students here to ask questions, but there's just one thing I want to do before I hand over to Professor Lance. I see that there are so many people from your organization, from Big Night. So all of you could please stand up. Let me just take a quick picture. Yeah. So let me just go back and, oh my God, that's okay.
This is called stalking the pond. You put all
Okay.
these people there.
Can you,
Looks like a busy room.
can you get the whole room together?
Thank you, guys.
Okay. So at this point, I want to hand over. I mean, I knew this was going to be my most fun interview. I just didn't know that this is going to be my easiest.
You
But
can
I
ask
just-
me anything too, but by the way, and sorry about the ramblings and so forth. It's been a really great run for 33 years since I started it. I've had a lot of great interactions with really fun people.
So I've got 3 students here. So
Yeah.
let me hand over to Professor Lance.
Right.
And by the way, it was the Don Henley song Boys of Summer, because I was trying
Yeah.
to think, I love that song. And if you ever, I love Mary Clayton because CBS did a great piece on her not too long ago.
Oh,
of
really?
course.
Okay.
But Fergie does a great job with Mick Jagger at that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony doing that song too.
Oh,
So
really?
you should take a look at the YouTube on it. It's awesome. We do have 3 students who have some questions for you. We just have a little bit of time left. So we want to kind of make sure that we get these students heard. And I don't know if I need to touch on anything here. And I'm going to ask the students if you can introduce yourself and then, pass that microphone along. And thank you for being here to ask these questions. So I'm going to pass it to you. You can introduce yourself.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for coming to Shaw and being one of the speakers. Just like your dedication just to others is really, really inspiring.
Thank you.
And Jamie, introduce yourself.
Yeah,
real
so
quick.
my name is Jamie. I'm a sophomore here at Shaw. And my question is, since Big Night is one of the top 10 companies to work for, what advice do you have for young professionals, for students who are just starting off in the hospitality industry, to foster a great work environment?
Great. Like, first of all, find a niche that you love and you're passionate at. Then you don't even have to be great at it yet. I feel like you just have to work at it, and find a place, and then keep looking around for, try to evolve into whatever it is you want, you eventually want to be, and find your happiness. I know that sounds like a cliche, right? But everyone here, I think, has found their position, and they didn't all start in that position. They kind of ended up there, but have a strong foundation is important, and have a good work ethic is important, and be able to take rejection, I think, is important. Our business is, we're busy on a daily basis, and a lot of times people will ask for a job or for something, and sometimes it doesn't happen on the first time. So ask again and keep trying, and then go for that job that you really want. And if you want to be in hospitality, I feel like now is the time to do it, because we need people, right? And we need really great people. And which is even better. Like, if you can bring a skill set to us, that's incredible. But we need people through the door. And that's why when I was asked to do it, I was so excited, because this is so important in our world, is to get people to be involved in hospitality. And it's a business that's often overlooked or dismissed, but is really a solid career path. And again, I keep referring to these folks here, but it's not just about being a server, which is great for a moment or maybe for a career, but it's also to create a career in there. Our CFO is here. So we have finance department, we have an HR department, we have a creative department. We have all these departments that people can come to work. so find whatever your niche is and then keep pushing to get in and work for a great company.
Thank you so much.
Hello, Ed.
You warned me you were going to ask me a
Yep.
question
Here
earlier.
I am. I'll tell you first off, well, my name is Vaughn. I am a part-time grad student here. And I'll tell you from the moment I bumped into you outside till now, you've definitely wowed me and don't have the vision I had of king of the nightlife in Boston. So I'm so great that I have an opportunity to ask you a question. You mentioned the big night orbit in the community, and it's great to hear that you acknowledge that your success is from those people being on the backs of them. So I was wondering what qualities, characteristics, and skills do you and your team look for employees to be involved in that big night orbit?
So I think, someone who can check the boxes for, first of all, you gotta be able to do the job, right? And then you have to have, I don't know, I feel like flexibility, sense of humor, being a team person is important, being able to work with the team, being flexible. So understanding that, and also understanding like we're not perfect either. So being a good communicator is important to us. If we do something wrong, we want to hear about it. We value your input. We don't always take it, but we value it. We want to hear it. And then, but being the best at your job and doing the work, not, I don't know, I feel like quiet quitting, so like overstated, but it's a hard job, right? Hospitality is hard. And while it's not always 24/7, it kind of is in some ways, you know what I mean? Because you're forever trying to make people who are coming to your places feel better. So you gotta be ready to put in the hard work. So hard work, smart, skilled at what you want to do, creativity in every department is really important. We have a lot of people in finance department or HR department who see things completely different than we did, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and they redo it, and that changed the kind of the trajectory of our company too, from a reporting standpoint. So you can make a big difference in a company. We're not that big a company, but you can make a big difference in our company by coming in and being creative and showing us a different way.
That's great. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I love your playlist, by the way.
Okay.
Especially Dream On by Aerosmith. It's one of my favorite songs. Something that struck me when I was actually at the job fair at this school was when I spoke to your representative, and they said that instead of during COVID, laying people off, you guys actually kept people in and tried very hard to make your family feel comforted during a very hard time. And I admire that very much. My question right now is, what has been your biggest success and your biggest challenge of your career?
Yeah, I mean, biggest success is probably, I think the game changer one for me in Boston was the Grand, probably. And that's been a big financial success. I feel like Big Night Live changed kind of the way we look at like live music, and we can marry nightlife and live music successfully in kind of a room. I don't know. I feel like there are so many challenges on a day-to-day basis. Like how do you continue to make employees feel, worthwhile in a world where there's so much outside pressure for, like everyone here. When I was talking to their daughter, Anne, her daughter is at BU, and I said, it's a hard world. When I was at school, there was no conspicuous consumption. I didn't know who was wealthy and who wasn't wealthy. And I think now the world is a little bit different, right? There's a lot of pressure on people. There's a lot of pressure on students. There's a lot of like, I want to get ahead and I want to make a lot of money because we all do in this group too. I got to be careful what I said, but we all do like crazy stuff when it comes to like NFTs or Bitcoin or whatever. But it's just a world where I think people want immediate satisfaction and gratification, and I think there's something to be said for getting involved in the hospitality business, which is a little bit more of a grind, but can create like great job satisfaction and great personal satisfaction. And also, they celebrate the same things that I celebrate, is you're really affecting people when they come through the door. Like you're creating like this song list, however that makes me feel, and your song, personal song list, however it makes you feel, is what we do every night, right? Kyle creates these videos and people watch them and they feel great about being there. So our job is about making people feel great. And so I don't know, I just feel like, love what you do and then be passionate about it and feel like, you're going to be part of a bigger picture, and then take a deep breath. Maybe it's tomorrow, I don't know, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's in a week, maybe it's in 5 years, but you'll make a big difference in an organization.
Thank you.
Students, thank you very, very much. Ed, I have to say, no disrespect to Steve Wynn, but your creativity and your insights and your experiences are anything but boring. This was really great to listen to you. So thank you for being here with us today. Please join me in a round of applause for all the wonderful.
Thank you.
And I want to invite everyone to a reception that we will have in the lobby area. We're just going to ask Dean Upneja and Ed to head out there first, and then they can greet us on our way out. We resume our Dean's Distinguished Speaker Series in the spring next semester. So thank you for being here with us today. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. What's that? I know, it's so good, right? Thanks.
Yeah, we're clearly from the same place.
Oh, yeah.